the journey you want to take. So I'm going to spend a lot of time today in a parable, and it's the parable of talents. And first I need to explain some things about the life of Jesus. I know that sounds strange to hear me say, I got to explain something about the life of Jesus. We got 4 Gospels. But here's one of the fallacies that we usually have about the life of Jesus. We think we don't have the timeline right. Sometimes if I were to say the parable of the talents, there's no context to understand when that took place. Now let me explain what I mean by this. For the first 2.5 years, Jesus only does ministry for about 3.5 years. That's when he's crucified. For about the first 2.5 years to 3 years, he kept preaching the same things over and over. He began to preach about the kingdom. He would eventually simply call disciples to come, and what was the initial call of discipleship? Come do what? Follow me. That's all he said. Come follow me. People dropped what they were doing. People did that. Other people started to show up and follow because he was traveling the countryside and he is demonstrating that he has power. He has authority. He has authority over sickness. He has authority over the spiritual realm of demons. He has authority over nature. He has these huge things. He would travel to one spot. He would do it again. He would travel to another spot. He would do it again. He would preach the same types of things. How do we know he preached the same types of things? In the Gospel of Matthew, you have 3 chapters dedicated to what's called the Sermon on the Mount. If you go to the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is preaching those same messages from a boat, on a lake, on a plane. Where was he? Was he on a mountaintop doing this? Or was he in a boat, on a lake, near a plane? Both places. He spends 2.5 years minimum, maybe 3 years, repeatedly doing the same types of messages, doing the same types of things. He'd go to a community, he'd heal people. He'd go to a community, he'd teach. He'd go to a community, they'd flock to see him. Sometimes they ran around a lake and he would preach the same types of messages. He preached the kingdom of God is coming. He preached things like it's going to look different. He preached very different things. And then he would test his disciples. Of course, half the time they don't understand what he's doing. They're asking, they can't get it, they're going with it, and he would test them. They would come to him. He would teach in parables because he didn't want everybody to fully understand it at first. He wanted them to be prepared first, so they'd come to him afterwards. And they go, what did you mean by that? He would explain it deeper to them. Some huge miracles he does more than once simply to teach something to his disciples. He fed 5,000. A little while later, he feeds 4,000 very similar ways. Why? Because he's teaching things to his disciples. Eventually, his teaching is going to change. A very significant event occurred. A very significant event. One day he's walking, he's traveling around the road. He would have these conversations. He would often do this, and he's kind of like testing his disciples, and he would say this, who does everybody say that I am? Who do the people say that I am? And one day Peter, the disciples are saying it, and they go, well, some say you're John the Baptist. Some say you're Elijah. Now, John the Baptist one didn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's what they did. But John the Baptist had already preached about his coming. John the Baptist had been imprisoned by Herod. John the Baptist had been slain by Herod, had been beheaded. So that one didn't make a lot of sense to me. Then they say a very intriguing one. Some say you're Elijah. Malachi, the last prophet of the Old Testament, says another's going to come. Elijah's coming back. If you're a Jew, every year at Passover, you set a spot at your Passover table in case Elijah shows up. So the fact that Jews were thinking, well, maybe this is Elijah. But then there's the day where Peter, our good boy Peter, who has got a big mouth, often getting in trouble, Peter says the most profound thing. Jesus said, well, who do you say I am? And Peter says, you're the Christ. You're the anointed one. You're the Son of God. In the very next verse, it says this, and then Jesus began to preach that he had to go to Jerusalem. There he would be given up. There he would be tortured. There he would be crucified. And on the 3rd day, he would rise. His teaching suddenly changes. Now, there's some familiar passages that we often don't place in the right timeline. For instance, there's this passage about discipleship where it says, if any man would come after me, he must do what, Nigel?
He must give up whatever he has
And give up what he has and pick up what? Pick up your cross. You know when he said that? It wasn't until after he began to preach that he had to go to the cross. The initial call of the discipleship was just come follow me. Once they know who he is, and the disciples are sure they understand who he is, he teaches that he's got to go to the cross, and how he teaches about discipleship changes. And it becomes weightier and heavier. And it's all about what it would mean to be a disciple after his death and resurrection. And the parable of the talents is in Matthew 25. It's late. It's after that recognition. It's after he has begun to teach now. This is what it's going to mean. Yes, just follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. Now, understanding that what his sacrifice was going to be, this is what it means as a disciple in the here and now. And this parable comes late in that experience. So I need you to see it and understand it, that this is after they know who he is, and he's telling to them all the time he's going to have to go die. And now he's sharing with them, so this is what it's going to look like for you in the kingdom of God. So, Matthew chapter 25 and following. So, this is the parable of the talents. And I just want to, just a quick reminder that a parable is nothing more than a short, simple story that makes a moral or religious lesson. Jesus is not just telling a story. He's got a purpose, and he's telling this story that his disciples get it and understand this key fact. So, how does the story start? It says this, for it will be like a man going on a journey. By the way, I'm using the English Standard Version today. There's a specific reason. You'll see that in a minute. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants. Now, this idea of the servants here is, this is the word in Greek. It says bondservant. Bondservant, you need to understand it this way. It's those who are indebted to him. That's the word he uses in Greek. So, in this parable, the man calls to himself those who are indebted to him. Wow, that's who he calls to himself. And then it says this, he entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents. I chose the English Standard Version because it uses the word talents, and many people are most familiar with this story because it uses the word talents. But anybody know how much a talent is? So in the in the NIV version, it uses the word, it translates the word that is translated from Greek talents in the English Standard Version. It translates it as bags of gold. Bags of gold. New Living Translation translates it bags of silver. Basically, it's between 5 and 20 years' wages. Jesus sets up this parable and he says, a man calls those who are deeply indebted to him, and he trusts them with talents. To one he gives 5 talents, 5 major gifts. To another 2, to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them. He made 5 talents more. And so he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of the servants came and settled accounts with them.